people, what's up? My name is Raz and welcome to Sound Design Saturday. Today is episode 3, which means we're still strong so far, and I'm happy about that. I'm glad to see you again, and we will be making a future house synth today. We will be using Sylenth1, and we will be making everything from scrap, or scratch, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just gonna play this little track that I made earlier before I started recording this video, and here we go. Yeah. Alright, so that's it. It's just a very simple track. I thought of finishing this track, really. It sounds interesting. So anyway, we will be making this little guy here. Yeah, that one. Alright, so I'm gonna start a new project. I'm gonna close my old one. And then I have a default setup that I have in FL, so whenever I start a project it will look like this, and I'm just gonna route this sampler here to a free mixer track. I'm also gonna replace it with Sylenth1, so go ahead and open Sylenth1 in your DAW. Okay, so we will be working on oscillator A1 here. This is the first oscillator in Sylenth1's part A. So first thing you want to do is change the waveform to a square wave. So a square wave looks like this. It's flat and it has sharp edges. And you would like to change the voices to 8. Let's untick the retrigger button right here. We won't be using that. And turn the detune knob up to around 2. And let's turn down the stereo width to 6.5. We'd also like to turn the pitch 1 octave down. Alright, let's move to oscillator A2 right here. Let's change the waveform to a trisaw. So a trisaw looks like this. It's the waveform before the noise. If you keep dragging all the way up and change the voices to 8 as well, untick the retrigger button or switch right here. We won't be using that. Let's turn down the stereo width as well. Let's set that to 6.5. Let's give it a little bit of detune. Let's set that to 4. And lastly, you would also like to turn down the pitch 1 octave down. Okay, now we can go to part B. Let's click on top here to switch to part B, and we will be working on oscillator B1. Now we already have a sawtooth wave loaded there. That's what we want. Now let's change the voices to 8. Let's unclick or untick the retrigger switch right here. Let's turn the detune up to 2.5. Let's turn down the stereo width as well like the others, and let's turn the pitch 1 octave down. Alright, that's pretty much it. Actually, I would like to set it a bit higher. Let's turn the detune to around 3. Alright, now let's move to oscillator B2 right here. This is the final oscillator. Let's set the voices to 1 to turn it on. Let's change the waveform to a square wave. Let's turn the stereo width all the way down to make sure this one is in mono. And lastly, let's turn the volume down. Turn that down to 4. Alright, that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, I forgot. Let's turn the pitch 2 octaves down. Alrighty. We can now proceed to the next part right here. Let's move to the filter section. Now let's switch back to part A, and let's change the filter shape to a bandpass. So a bandpass looks like this. It looks like a small hill, a hump or mountain, and we'll be using a 12 dB per octave slope. And let's give it a little bit of resonance. Let's turn that up to 4, around 4. Let's give it a little bit of drive as well. Let's turn that to 3. Alright, let's switch to part B, and we will be using a low pass filter with some resonance. Let's give it a tad bit, set that to around 1.5. And let's give it some drive too, set that around 2. And lastly, we will turn the cutoff up to 500 Hz. Alright, we're done with the filter section. Now we can move to the effects section, which is right here in the middle. So first things first, let's enable the distortion. I'm gonna click check to enable it. Select the bit crush type and turn the amount knob down to around 4. Alright, let's move to the equalizer. I'm gonna tick check to turn it on, and we would like to turn the treble knob down to 700 Hz. Next is the reverb. Let's enable the reverb. Let's turn down the pre-delay to around 20 ms. Let's turn up the damping to 1. Let's set the reverb size down a little bit. Let's turn that down to 4. And lastly, we would turn the dry wet knob up to 60%. Last but not the least is some compression. So turn on the compressor right here and set the ratio to 3:1. Turn down the threshold to below 20 dBs. Let's give it a 20 ms attack and a 120 ms release. Now we can proceed to the next part, which is the amplitude envelope right here. So let's switch back to part A. Let's set the decay fader at the middle. Let's turn the sustain fader all the way down. And let's set the release fader up a little bit to around 3.3. And we will copy this settings to the other part. So just click on C to copy. Switch to the other part and click P to paste. Alright, now let's do some minor tweakings. So at the bottom left part, let's change the pitch band range to 12 semitones, so that's an octave. And let's move here to the bottom right corner. You would like to enable the mono legato switch right here. Just tick it to turn it on and select the slide option. And lastly, we would turn the portamento knob up to 4. So this will give us a sliding effect whenever we press a key. And last thing is the mix B fader. Turn that down to 3. And let's turn up the master volume to 7. Just enough that it won't reach clipping. Alright, so it's time to use some external plugins. So you would like to load an equalizer at Sylenth1's mixer channel. So I've routed my Sylenth to mixer channel 1 and I'm going to open an equalizer. So this is FL's native plugin right here. This is Parametric EQ2. And I'm gonna change the first band to a high pass. I'm gonna set that to around 50 Hz. I'm also gonna set the second band to a bell or a peaking type. I'm gonna give it a little bit of boost, around 4. I'm also gonna set that to around 125. I'm also gonna make sure that they all have a very smooth bandwidth. I'm also gonna disable the other bands that I'm not gonna use. If you think my EQs are sloppy, well, it could be, but I already experimented with the sound earlier, so I kinda know what settings to apply already. So just go with the flow, but you could always change things later on in the end. It's a free world, just do anything you would like to do. The sound is all yours. Alright, so that's pretty much it. This is the end of the tutorial. I'm also going to play a few keys just to make sure that you guys have the same sound as I do. So here we go. I'm also gonna load the MIDI of the track that I played earlier. Boom! Oh yeah! Oh yeah! That is sexy! So once again, I would like to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to stay connected. I have links in the description you can check out. I also have a link where you can post your requests and suggestions. I'll be so glad to read them. Once again, this is Ras Loyola. Keep making banging tracks and have a good day.
It's